Hello everyone, my name's Rob, and in this video we're going to be covering the Free Code Camp workshop for building a cat blog page. And I'm going to be going through it step by step. Matter of fact, it's all going to be chaptered out down below. And I just want to say hi if you're new here. My name's Rob. I'm with PreCodeCamp. I'm a coding instructor, and I'm making these videos to help those that are just learning to try to get the most out of these. And maybe you're a visual learner. Maybe you need a little more explanation. And that's what these videos are for. So if you're new, if you're returning, great, I love it. Make sure you comment down below where you're from and where are you at in your learning process. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here's an overview. They give us a little preview once we start the lesson of what we're going to be creating. You can see that we have an H1, we have an image here with the cat. And as we scroll down, we have maybe a navigation section. And then we have, looks like H2s with the headers. And then we have some blog posts going here, and then we have some content information down here as a footer. So again, we're going to be going through this. This is our first time going through it as well. So we may make mistakes, and that's good because you see that I make mistakes as well going through this. Now, everything is chaptered out down below. So if you are missing a step and you don't want to watch everything all the way through, take a look down below. You'll see it chaptered. You'll also find a like button and subscribe also. So if this video is helpful, make sure that you do that. All right. Step number one, it says in this workshop, you're going to be practicing working with semantic HTML by building out a blog page for Mr. Whiskers the cat. And we want to begin the project with a doc type with an HTML language as well as setting that to English. And it does give us some code examples here. Now, one of the things I'm always telling students to do, if you're not familiar with some of these things that are on here, it's totally okay for starting out. And you can totally highlight this or go to Google and type out doc type HTML W3 schools. It's a great resource. We're going to be utilizing it throughout this to point out a few things here and there. But just real quick explainer on what some of these things here do. This lets the browser know what type of file is this going to be. And by it seeing the doc type with HTML, it knows that it's an HTML5 file and that it will render it properly with it. As far as the HTML tag goes, HTML's tag element, we're going to be doing all of our work inside of the HTML, whether that be a head and a body. And then the body is going to display everything for us on our page. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy everything here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in here because it's telling us that's exactly what we want and need to do on here. This is a comment. I don't think it's going to get saved to the next part, but just know that comments are things that the browser does not render if it detects it. So it's a way for us to mark up code with maybe a to-do list or an explanation to developers. So let's check our code. And we're ready to move on to the next section here. All right, we are on step number 2 of building a cat blog page. And what it's asking us to do here is add a head element. Now, as we're developing with markup code for HTML, there's going to be some elements out there that are going to be open and close. And then there's going to be ones that are just open, and those are called void elements. And once we get to one, I will explain and show you some of the differences. I believe maybe in the next couple steps, we'll see a few. But whenever we're talking about what goes inside of the HTML, we have the head and the body. The head is coming first, and that's where we're going to go ahead and put our opening for the head, and then we're going to close that off with the closing tag here. Let's go ahead and check our code, and there we go. Moving on to the next. All right, step number 3. So it says inside your head element, we want to go ahead and nest a meta element, and we want the character set to be set to UTF-8. And then below the meta element, we want to go ahead and add a title. And that title needs to be of the following. All right, perfect. This is a real good example of maybe if you are very new to this and you are wondering, what do these things do? A great resource is the W3 schools. And I'm going to show you here, if you do a Google search for head element W3 schools, you'll be brought to here, which is the header tag, or the head tag, rather. And we have an example of what things look like. And inside the head here, there's our title. Okay, so we're definitely going to need that. And then down here it says, hey, here's some other things that can go inside of the head element. And that's exactly what I was telling you earlier, which is maybe you can add a style, you can add links, you can do meta tags, you can do JavaScript, right? So all these other things that you can all do inside of the head section. Now, it did talk about meta. Let's take a look at the meta section. So here's the meta tag. And look at this. There's no closing tag with this. So this is one of our very first examples of it not needing a closing tag of a meta. So here's the opening, but we don't see a closing tag, right? So I am going to grab this because I do need this, and I'm going to bring that over to our code and paste it there. And then the next thing I need is the title. And this is going to be open and close as well. And in between them, I want to go ahead and grab the title. Now, again, we're not going to see anything on our page. The title section is more or less used for the browser's tab. If you notice that at the very top of the browser that you're using, the tab will have some sort of title in it. And that's where it's generated from, is this tag right here. Let's go ahead and check our code, and we're ready to move on to the next section. Step number 4 says, let's go ahead and prepare to have some actual content show up on our page. In order for that to happen, we need to have a body element, and that needs to be below the head. We're just going to do body, and then we want to close this one off as well. So anything that we put inside of the body should be showing up, assuming that it has content to show, right? Let's go ahead and check our code, and we're moving on to the next. Step number 5 in the Build a Cat blog page for freeCodeCamp, it says that the first section that we want to build is the header. We're going to utilize a header element that's going to represent some introductory content like page navigation. Here's an example. There's our example of header. And inside the header element, we have an H1, we have an image. But right now, it just wants us to apply a header element. W3 schools, if you do take a look at it, it does mention in here that you can have several header elements throughout your document, but it does warn you against having a header. It cannot be placed in the footer or the address, or you can't have a header within a header. Just keep that in mind as you are going through this. But let's go ahead and do exactly what it's wanting. So inside here, we're just going to do header, and then we want to close that off. And there we go. Let's check our code. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next section. All right, step number 6, it says the header section will be responsible for displaying the main title and the image. Let's go ahead and start off by doing the header. So inside of the header element, let's add that H1, and we want the Welcome to Mr. Whiskers blog page with that exclamation mark. And now we can see something finally showing up on our page on the right-hand side here. So let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. And we're moving on to the next section. We're in step number 7 in Build a Cat blog page for freeCodeCamp, and says that in the introductory content, you'll want to show an image of Mr. Whiskers with a caption. And if we can remember, what does that look like? Let's take a look here. We can see that we already have the title. This is the preview page that we originally saw. And we have the cat. And then right here is the caption that it's talking about. So the way that they're wanting us to do this, it says below the H1 element, add a figure element. And inside the figure element, there's going to be an image. And then that image element has some attributes that go along with it. And then down here it says below the image tag, add a fig caption with Mr. Whiskers is sleeping. Again, if we're a student, we're looking to learn a little bit more about some of these features. If we go to W3 schools and take a look at the figure element, they almost have an exact example on what we're trying to do. But here it says use the figure element to mark the photo in a document. And basically it allows us to add a caption to the end of the photo. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And something that I want to also bring to your attention here is it's almost like we're wrapping up a package, or we're putting things in a package here. And here's our figure box, and inside the figure box, we're putting in an image. Then we're also putting in a fig caption to go right underneath it. So I know there's a lot going on in this instructional set, and we're going to make sure that we go through it methodically. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create the fig captions for this, or not the fig caption, but the figure element. And then we're going to go ahead and close it off. So that's step number 1 of the step 7. And then inside of the figure, it says that we need to have an image tag, and that is referenced by an img. And then we want to have the src. We want to set that equal to something. And then we also need the alt text to be set to something else. And then we can go ahead and close this off. Now, An image tag, it is a void element, meaning that it doesn't deserve closing tags like we normally would see in like an H1 element. All right. Once we get done with the image tag, then we can do the fig caption. And then again, we're going to close that off. Okay. So we're not done with this test so far. We still have to add in some of the data. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this image here, and they give us the URL to put in the SRC. They give us the alt text that needs to be inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it, and let me go ahead and put that in there. And then for the fig caption itself, it wants Mr. Whiskers sleeping. I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. All right. So it looks like they're nicely stacked. We have the image, and then we also have the Mr. Whiskers sleeping underneath, and all contained in the figure element. So let's go ahead, test out our code. Congratulations, we're moving on to the next section. Step number 8 in Build a Cat blog page for FreeCodeCamp. It says that for your blog page, there'll be some way for the users to navigate to different sections on the page, and the nav element is used to provide the navigation links to certain sections on the document. And a lot of times you'll see nav elements used for menus and tables. Yes, that's true. Usually you'll see us utilize this semantic element right here, the nav element, to indicate something that would be on a nav bar. Now, looking at W3 schools, it does tell us that this is used for screen readers or the disabled users. Okay. So again, the nav element can also, for you as the developer, would be, hey, we're sectioning off certain things of the web page. It gives us an outline to know where things are. So anyways, it does provide us with some sample codes of what it's wanting, because it says that the nav element is used to provide that the navigational links, and it says below the figure, we want to go ahead and add a nav element with an unordered list element nested inside. And inside the list, then you want to also have an LI element. And it says that we need to have 3 of them. So let's go ahead and do this. And it's almost going to be the exact same thing as this. And matter of fact, I might as well just copy this and modify it to make it my own. We have the nav that's open and closed. We have the ULs. And really what it wants is, it says at least 3 of the LIs. So I'm going to go ahead and delete what's inside of these and just keeping the LIs. Okay, let's go ahead and check the code. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next. All right, we are in step number 9 in building a cat blog page for FreeCodeCamp. And it says in here that inside each one of these LIs, we need to have an anchor element. And the first anchor element that we need to have on here is going to be the about, and then we want an with the hashtag about. Okay, and then we're going to be continuing this pattern here for posts and then contact. So let's go ahead and do this. So what it's asking for is an anchor tag. That's a link. Okay, and anchor tags are A, and then we want the href to be something. And then I'm going to go ahead and close off the A. All right, so inside the very first one that we have here, it says that we need to have this one called about. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then the href, it wants it to be a hashtag of about. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and copy that and put that in here. So I have a good working example of the very first one. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And notice that we do get like a little link. We get some bullet points from the unordered list from our previous one. And then I'm going to paste this one here, and then I'm going to do it one more time down here. So the very first, or the second hashtag on here is going to be posts, and then the third hashtag is going to be contact, and then I'm just going to match up the words here with what it was wanting. So posts and then contact. Okay. Now these hashtags that we're putting on here, they are truly links. Later on, it will reference potentially a section on the web page, and it will have an ID that we are going to be placing in the element called about, or we'll have an element down below that is for contact, and you'll see an ID for contact. And what this will do for us, it will automatically scroll down to the web page where it finds that ID. That's what that hashtag will do here for us. But let's go and check our code. We got the congratulations. Let's move on to the next. Okay, step number 10 it says that now that we've finished building out the page's header along with the navigation, it's time to add a main element. And go ahead and put this below the header. It already has us starting on line 25. And what it's looking for is this, okay? And another semantic tag. We're not going to see anything on the page until we actually put some content on here, but it's just a simple open and close tag is what they're looking for. So let's go ahead and check our code. All right, we're moving on. 43% done. Step number 11, it says the first section of the page will be about, the section will introduce Mr. Whiskers to the users and what the blog is about. So inside our main element, let's go ahead and add a section element, and we're going to give it an ID of about. Now, this is what I was telling you about earlier in the previous step when it said, hey, these links that are over here, utilize that hashtag about. Once we apply this ID to this section, it should automatically scroll to this part here. So let's go ahead and do the section. Let's break this down into kind of stages here. And so I'm just going to do a closing tag of section. And then inside the section, it does want us to have an H2. And I didn't forget about the ID that we need to put on there, but I just want to add these elements here so we don't forget about them. All right. And then inside here, we're going to do the about for the H2. And then inside the section, we want to give it an attribute of an ID, and we want to assign it the about, okay? And so let's go ahead and check our code here, and perfect. We're moving on to the next section. All right, step number 12 in Build a Cat blog page for FreeCodeCamp. It's basically telling us below the H2 element that we just got done writing, which is the about, we need to add two different paragraph elements to this section here. And when we do, we want to make sure that we put these certain words in them. This one's going to be a real easy one for us to finish. So let's go ahead and knock it out. So the first thing we do is I know for a fact that we need two paragraph tags. And so I'm going to go ahead and create those. And then I'm just going to make it real easy on myself. And I'm just going to grab the text that they want up to including the period that's in there. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. And that should give us green check mark for this. And you can see that the two paragraph tags are now added. Okay, let's go ahead and check our code, and congratulations, we're moving on to the next. Step number 13, it says now that we've added our very first section, which is the about, now let's go ahead and do the next section of this blog. We want to make sure that we set the ID of the section to posts, and then inside of the section, we're going to do an H2 element with the word post put inside. Pretty simple, stuff that we have seen before. So we're going to do the section. I'm going to do this the exact kind of same way that I did the previous one by creating these tags. And it says inside of the section, we need an H2. And so let's go ahead and put that in there. Okay. All right. And we just need the word posts. And then in here for the section, we need the ID. And we want to set that equal to post. Okay. And I believe that these need to be spelled exactly the same for what they are wanting for us to pass the test. So let's go ahead and check that out. And there we go. And you can see that it is down here. Okay, moving on to the next section. All right, we are on step number 14 of the Build a Cat blog page for FreeCodeCamp. And it's telling us here that we're going to be utilizing a new element in this, and it's going to be called article. This will represent a self-contained content for a web page. It gives us some example code of what we can envision an article to be like. But instead of H1 here, it does want us to have an H3 instead. And it does provide us with some text to go inside there and gives a little bit of explanation of what the H3 does. I would like to show you guys the W3 School section here to maybe go a little bit further and thinking what are some other possible uses for this. And not only does it work well for blog posts, but forum posts, news stories. Something to note on here that the element does not render anything special on the browser. However, later you can target the article semantic tag in the CSS, and it says see below. So I do have this one pulled up here as well. You can see that each one of the articles has its own styling for it. So Again, you're not going to see anything physically once we start adding the article on here. It is going to be used potentially for styling, and it is used for blog posts, forum posts, news articles, those types of things. Let's go ahead and complete this challenge here for this step. And that's going to be article. And then I'm going to close it off. Okay. And then I'm going to come back to the intersection here, and I'm just going to hit the enter key. And it says in here we want the H3. So let's go ahead and do that, H3, and then I'm going to close that off. All right. Inside the H3, it wants us to add this right here, Mr. Whiskers' first day home. And we're going to go ahead and put that for the H3. And we can see now that we have some content on here. And the H3, it is smaller than the H2 and obviously even smaller than the H1 that we have up here. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. And let's see, what did we need to do? The H3, Mr. Whiskers' first day home. I think I have a stray period in here. And there we go. All right, cool. Moving on to the next. All right, we are on step number 15 here of the Build a Cat blog page for FreeCodeCamp, and it's wanting us to add a couple paragraph tags on our article here, and it needs to have filler text with lorem ipsum. Now, filler text just allows you as a developer to see what things look like if you were to have some paragraphs put in there. And so really all I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this right here from the p tag to p tag, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to bring it down here. I'm going to go ahead and paste. I'm going to hit the enter key, and then I'm going to paste it again, and then I'm going to go ahead and check our code. That gives us the two paragraphs that it's wanting. We can see it visually down here that we have the posts, we have our very first blog, and then we have the two paragraphs. So let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. Moving on to the next. All right, step number 16. It says for the second blog post, we're going to need another article element. And inside there, we want an H3. That H3 needs to have a Mr. Whiskers' first bath. And then below the H3, two more paragraphs with ipsum text. So we already have a good working example here up above, so I'm just going to grab it and copy that to my clipboard, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste that here. Now, instead of Mr. Whiskers' first day back home, it just wants first bath. So I'm going to update it with first bath. Okay, and let's check the web page to see how that looks, and we can see how things are looking nice. As far as a Word document would go, no styling whatsoever. But let's check our code, and we're moving on to the next step. Number 17 is asking for a third blog post. And again, we're just going to go article to article, grab our last one that we just got done doing, pasting, and then it says on here that it needs to be first birthday party. So let's change that from bath to birthday party, and that should work for this one. And let's double check the page. It looks like it does have the two paragraphs, and we have our H3. All right, let's go ahead and submit. There we go. Moving on to the next step. So step number 18 in building a cat blog page for FreeCodeCamp, it says that now that we've finished adding all the blog posts, the last component that we want to add to the blog page is going to be the contact section. So below the main element, let's go ahead and add a footer element. The footer element is just a tag. Again, we're not going to see anything with this, and then we're going to close it off. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and check the code. All right. Moving on to the next. Step number 19 is asking us to add a section element and have an ID attribute set to contact, and then inside that section, we want to have an H2 element. Pretty simple here. We're just going to go to section, and we're going to give it the ID here of contact, and then we're going to close this off. And then inside the section, it says that we want an H2 element, contact, and then close off the H2. Okay, let's go ahead and check our code. There's the contact, there's the footer, there's the section. Let's check it off. There we go. Moving on to the next. All right, so inside the contact section for step number 20 here, it says that we want to show the blog author's contact information. And you're going to want to utilize the address element for this. So it says that below the H2 element, go ahead and utilize the address element. And it does provide us with an example here with encapsulating the address. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the street name here. And then this BR, it does say that stands for break, which will put a line break and move it on to the next line, right? So all we need is the address. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this real quick and paste it down here. Now, I know I don't need that full address. It just wants the address element. It doesn't want anything in between, but you can see what that line break does there for us. But I'm going to go ahead and remove what is in there. And again, we're not going to see anything, but we can check our code and then we are able to submit this and move on. All right. Moving to the next step. Step number 21 in building a cat blog page for freeCodeCamp. It says that we're going to need to add a phone number and an email address for the blog author. So inside the address element, go ahead and add a paragraph element with the following text, and then do another paragraph element with the following text. It seems to be pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and grab this right here, which is the phone number, and then I'm going to go ahead and dial it after we get done here. But we got the paragraph tag. Let's go ahead and close that off. And then the next thing that we want to do here is we want to do one for the email. So let me grab it and then come down here and close it off. All right, we can scroll down, take a look, and there's the phone, there's the email, and now we can go ahead and check our code. Looks like we did it, and we're moving on to the next. Step number 22, to improve the user experience, we want to go ahead and enhance the phone number so that when you click on the phone number, that it will actually initiate a call. So here's how you do it. We need to utilize an anchor tag. And we need to provide the H and provide the keyword here of tell with a colon, followed by the phone number that needs to be used. So in this example here, we're going to come over here to the phone number and we're going to wrap this in an anchor tag. Okay. All right. So once we have that, then we can go ahead and do we're going to set that equal to TEL colon, and then the phone number. In this case here, it's going to be all fives, 55, 555, 5555. All right. I think that works. Let's go ahead and take a look at our code here. And there we go. Congratulations. We can also take a look down here. We do have it underlined, and usually if you highlight over it, you do get the little link that you see down below, bottom left, on what that link will actually do. All right, moving on to the next. Step number 23. So we're doing the same thing, making it a little more user-friendly for the email as well. So that way, when they click on the link, their native email will go ahead and pop up and be able to autofill. The to part comes to shooting an email off. For this final step, we're going to wrap the text here for the fake email. So just like before, just going to do an A tag, and then I'm going to close it off. And then I'm going to deal with the attribute of the href. Now, what do we want to put in here? And it gives us an example here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it and put it right here and make sure that there is a space in between here, and not the mail to contact, but we want the fake email. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and get rid of the example part here. All right. That should work. And if we scroll down, we'll see that it is the fake email, and we got the link in the bottom left-hand corner of the browser to indicate what it is going to do. And now we can go ahead and check our code. All right, we're done. Can you believe it? We'd completed the Build a Cat blog page for freeCodeCamp. So if you stuck through it this long, congratulations. Hopefully this video ended up helping you. And please make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel. Which video should we do next for our lessons? Let me know in the comments. We'll see you next time. Bye.